Hello, I am Jan Reardon, and I am honored to be able to represent the Jennifer Reardon Foundation. Jennifer is my sister-in-law, and we had lost her tragically 5 years ago, and right from the start, my brother initiated this foundation with a group of board members that are, I think, unmatched. They're just an amazing group of people, and it's all being done for acts of kindness and keeping Jen's mantra of being kind, loving, caring, and sharing alive. And hats off to my brother, because it's amazing how, 5 years later, the foundation is going strong, and the impact has been something that is just measurable and in such a positive way. So with this show, I get the opportunity here with Town Meeting TV to be able to bring in different guests, which are resources for us in the Burlington community. And I have had a chance to really talk to some great people today. I'm really excited about, I'll introduce you to Jonathan Farrell in just 1 minute, but Jonathan is the executive director of COTS. And I just can't wait, because as much as I thought I knew about COTS, there's so much more that is happening right here in Burlington. So let me just turn this over to Jonathan Farrell and say thank you so very much for being here, and congratulations on your almost 1 year right over at the executive director of COTS. But you have been with the organization for how many years?
About a dozen years now.
Yeah, what a great resource you are.
Roles, so.
Right.
Thank you so much for having us here today.
My pleasure. And the reputation that you have, your team, and COTS as an organization is really fabulous. So I'm so excited to hear about what you're doing and any of the details, and if there's volunteer support that is needed, and on from there. But let's start with the mission. In your words, what you feel as though obviously the team is motivated to do and has been accomplishing, and then maybe just touch upon some of the different programs and services that you do offer beyond that emergency shelter that people think was COTS years ago.
Absolutely. Thanks. So our mission really is to advocate for long-term solutions to homelessness while providing emergency services.
So the overlap is there.
And shelter to folks who are experiencing homelessness or who might be, precariously housed. We really firmly believe that that housing is a fundamental human right. That we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every human life, and we also believe that emergency shelter is not the answer to homelessness.
Which is great to hear, because as much of a purpose that has served, unfortunately for many, many years, there's such a cycle. And I do know, just from conversations, that once people do come through COTS and end up in, more temporary to permanent housing, everything changes. And that's what we want in our community, is to see people thriving. And then those people, just like when I worked at the Y, we'd have a membership for all, and the people that would take part in that needed it. And once things changed and they were in a better situation, then they were giving back. And that's all you can hope for, is somebody goes through that, has a positive experience. So yes, thank you again so much for taking it out of that emergency, shelter type of mentality.
Right. I think our name is misleading. We were founded as the Committee on Temporary Shelter.
Sure.
Back in 1982.
82. Okay, that's what I was wondering, right?
Yeah, a young guy by the name of Bernie was the mayor before my time with COTS.
He didn't have mittens back then.
Yeah. We recently sort of refreshed our branding and our website, and we are sort of leaning into COTS now as opposed to Committee on Temporary Shelter, because we do so much more.
Right. And while you're on that, Jonathan, just give us your website so that it's out there, because it's a really nice website.
Well, thank you. It's cotsonline.org.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can find out a lot about us there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we do place an emphasis on the outreach and emergency services. So one of our flagship programs is the Day Station. And this is a drop-in center. We're open 365 days a year. It's for folks who are over the age of 18 and experiencing homelessness.
And is that at your main site, or where is that?
That is right at 95 North Avenue.
North Avenue, okay.
It's at our North Avenue site. The Day Station is where we meet people, often for the first time.
Right. And how many people can be at the Day Station at a time?
Well, right now we are consistently serving 60, 65 people a day, as high as 80 or 90.
Oh,
again, because we're open every day of the week. We don't close for holidays. We don't close for Sundays. We serve a noontime meal every day to folks who are visiting with us. We also offer showers. We offer laundry facilities to folks. We also bring a lot of community partners into that space. So we don't require people to engage in services if they come to visit.
Right.
But we do maintain a substance-free space, and we expect certain behavioral norms within the space.
Absolutely.
We also implement harm reduction models. There's a huge opioid substance use crisis happening now.
Right.
So we're aware of that, and we take precautions. We don't check everybody at the door. We don't drug test.
Right.
But if folks can come in, they want to be in a space that they can get away from that. If
Exactly.
you're living out, sleeping rough, which about 40 or 50% of our visitors on any given day are. Everything is right in their face: substance use, theft. Right. They want a nice, safe space.
Exactly.
So we maintain that, but we bring a lot of community partners in, Opportunities Credit Union, to help work with folks. The Turning Point Center comes regularly to connect with our folks.
Fabulous.
The Department of Labor
How
comes.
long has it been structured that way? Has it always, have you had these collaborations?
We've had these collaborations
all
for
along?
years.
Wonderful.
Like a lot of things during the pandemic,
Sure.
a lot of that kind of just came undone.
Right.
We've been really trying to build back. We have a great relationship with Dr. Pepper Keurig. They come serve lunch and offer job opportunities to folks. The Department of Labor is in there regularly. The Burlington Housing Authority comes because they can check on people to see where they are on a wait list for housing.
Yes.
In person, as opposed to by mail. We also are the mail depot for probably 1,500 people right now. We have a post office box.
Needed an address.
They need an address. They need to get those important pieces of mail. Sometimes they're getting their checks in the mail.
Right.
Right. So we do our best to build relationships with folks in that space by offering those services and kindness and making people feel welcome. From there, we hope to get people who are interested into our overnight shelter program. And that it definitely is a programmatic shelter.
What are the hours of the day station?
The day station is open basically 9 to 5.
9 to 5, very nice.
Right, and in the winter we open a little earlier and close a little later, so
very
people
nice,
have a little extra time to be out of the elements. Our way station shelter, we take an approach we call housing-focused shelter.
Okay,
So
and where is that located?
that is located on Lower Church Street.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
right. We ask that people who are participating in that shelter, one, that it remain a substance-free space, and two, that they engage with one of our housing navigators. And the housing navigator role does everything from getting a birth certificate, getting vital paperwork.
All those
all
steps that just bog you down too.
All of those things before you can
It's
do
overwhelming,
anything.
and it's overwhelming.
Right. So we help connect people with that, and we expect that they're working on their housing plan to the best of their ability.
So how many housing navigators do you have?
We have 3
Wonderful.
full-time folks doing that
Full-time.
work. Yep, doing that work.
Oh,
and of course,
such
the
a
shelter
gift.
staff aides in that. Our staff at the day station aid in that. They're really
Work
sort
together,
of joint
more of a
programs
team.
in a lot of
Right,
ways. Right.
right.
We're really happy to say that it's effective. Right. So in the last quarter of, the first quarter of this year, October through December, 12 people from the way station shelter moved into permanent housing. Permanent housing of their own. So
that's beautiful.
It's super
what a
effective.
great stat that is. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the flip side of that is our family shelter program. So now we have 2 locations and room for 15
excuse me for 1 second,
families.
Jonathan, because I was thinking about this
Yeah,
earlier.
sure.
But say at the way station, are there families as well as
No,
strictly individuals?
strictly individuals,
Okay.
right,
So day and the way station are all individual.
All individuals,
Okay. And so I
right.
was wondering if there was,
Yes.
and I know the numbers, but if that was part of it. So now we
Right.
move to the family shelter.
Right.
And where is that located?
We have 2 locations. One's on Main Street and one is on North Winooski. North Winooski Avenue.
Okay.
Sorry, North Champlain.
North Champlain, right.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's 1 program, 2 locations. We have space for 15 families.
Oh,
and that's always full. One location on Main Street houses 10 families at a time. The other 5.
And how long can a family stay? Is it all dependent upon the scenario that you're
All dependent upon
dealing
the
with
scenario.
at that time?
We shoot for 6 months, and we've been
Wonderful.
hitting that mark lately.
Right.
But if somebody, again,
But they're going to have at least 6 months.
they have 6 months. If they're actively working, we are not going to
Right. If it's
terminate
this
their
close
stay
to
on
being
the-
able to
right,
have
right,
permanent
so-
housing,
right.
of course.
Yeah, we
and it's a
keep them on
manageable
long
number,
one.
I'm sure. I mean, even though that's a gift to 15 families, at least from your end, you can keep track of things very well.
Yeah. No, it's great. And in that programming, we've created a space that's very warm and inviting. We use a set of principles we call trauma-informed design, which involves like the calming colors, soft lighting to make it feel
and
as
there's so much
relaxing,
truth to that.
as relaxing as it can be. Right, because we all process our environment
Right.
without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I know with preschools wherever I've been. Boy, you change that paint, and it is, you have to do some research. That's all I can say.
Right.
Yeah. So,
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
But that is beautiful.
Yeah,
then.
it's great. And we embed in that team, along with the shelter staff, and the families, of course, are working with a housing navigator on their housing plan.
Yeah.
We also have a children's education advocate on staff.
No idea about this.
And
This is awesome.
the children's education advocate helps families navigate all things school related. So if you were living in Shelburne and then find yourself in experiencing homelessness in Burlington,
Right.
you are allowed by federal law to go to to stay in the Shelburne School District, or you could go to the Burlington.
So you have the choice.
You have the choice.
Right.
And like everything, it's a lot.
Exactly.
It's a lot
on top
to manage.
of
On
whatever
top of,
jobs they're trying to,
Yes,
people are
absolutely.
lining up and all the other moving parts.
Yep. That also includes after-school programs, daycare for young kids.
Lining that up.
Lining that up, helping the families line it up.
Camps in the summer.
Camps in the summer, vacation. What do you do? 'Cause
Yes.
what kid
And the
doesn't want to come?
nutritional aspect of it.
Right. What kid doesn't want to go back to school and also share what I did on my vacation or what I did over break? Right. So we run field trips.
Oh,
and stuff for the
really?
kids,
So
right?
there's activities that go on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Kids want to blend
Yeah,
in more than
exactly,
anything.
right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. And then we also have a mental health, children's mental health advocate on our staff. That's been fantastic. So
bet.
they engage the families and the kids in all sorts of therapeutic activities, whether it's art, puppets in education has been in,
Right.
all kinds of things, cooking, just the things that,
Right.
and help.
And great skills.
Great skills
Yes.
and help the families learn how to regulate and what do you do when you have to have a tough conversation with your kid
Yes.
and all of that. All of it is, wrapping the families as much as we can with the goal that as they move on,
Right. It'll be a better blend.
It'll be a better blend,
At that
and
time,
they'll
skill set that they didn't have coming in.
and they will know who to reach out to in the
Exactly,
community
right.
build
And
those
it's all about
connections.
those resources.
Yes.
Everybody needs them.
It
you
is, we
know,
all
and
have them, and we take them for granted.
Exactly,
But when you
right.
don't
Some people
have
aren't
any-
even aware that it exists. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the other piece, we have a motel outreach team that's been active in the motels since 2020.
so how many motels? do you have?
Well, it was as high as 13 at the
In
height
the
of the
Burlington
pandemic.
area?
In Chittenden County. We're down to I think 4 now, where most of the households are. So we have a team out doing that navigation
so do you
work
take over
with them.
the motel and have it in its entirety, or are there certain
no.
rooms that
So,
you have
Well, if
access to?
Yeah, they're folks who are experiencing homelessness who have been put up by the state in the motels.
Okay.
So we're connecting with those individuals.
Oh, yes.
Right, for the same sorts of services,
Wonderful.
housing
Right.
navigation.
Otherwise,
right.
where does it stop? You know. Right.
And again, in the last 3 months, 19 households from the motels have moved into permanent
housing.
Right, and that's our team working with them, but it's also collaboration with security deposits and funding from CVOEO
Oh,
and a lot of our community
Yeah,
partners,
I mean,
because it
there's
takes
a-
the whole
that's it,
community to
you
do
know.
this. But we're really proud of that work because it's hard.
And
It's
the
hard
fact
work.
that you have developed those collaborations is where the success really can lie as far as sustainability.
Yeah.
Because there's really not any surprises. You have everything, the basics are all covered there to get to that next step.
Yeah.
Without the uncertainty. So, I mean,
wonderful.
just, such a gift for this community.
Yeah, we've got another program we run in conjunction with the Howard Center. It's called Family Supportive Housing.
Okay.
And we started this as a pilot about 10 years ago, and it's now a statewide program, so that's great.
That sure is fabulous.
Yeah, so what we're doing is collaborating with families that have significant issues. They have DCF involvement, they're experiencing homelessness, and we work to support
Do
those
these people
families.
come to you, or do you get
There's a
to them in a different way?
Yeah,
so referral, that's what I was
there's a
wondering.
referral
Right, so
system,
yeah,
right?
so they're on the radar for
through-
you to be able to then.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So we work
Wonderful.
closely with the Agency of Human Services, Economic Services
Yes, yes.
to identify the families and support
Wonderful.
them. We're actively expanding that program now to a coordinator and 5 clinicians. So we'll be able to work with 75 households once it's up and running in its entirety. We're carrying about 15 or 20 on that.
So
program
how
right now.
many employees do you have? I mean,
Small
and
but
do
mighty.
you ever sleep?
We're small but mighty.
I guess
We're under 50.
Wow, that's powerful then.
35,
for,
40 full time, some part time, some per diem shelter
Right,
staff.
right.
So we do a lot. We do a lot with that.
certainly
Yeah,
do.
yeah. And then our last wing is the permanent solutions.
Right.
So affordable housing. We currently have 90 units of affordable housing across the city and Winooski, and that's an aspect that we're ramping up. We're
nice.
ramping up supports within that. So we're finding these days that the acuity of need is higher than it's ever been.
Yes.
So
And
being
when
homeless
you say,
is
like, in this day, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
like after the pandemic, did you see a big
that is on Main Street. So it's
in Burlington?
In Burlington,
Okay.
it's adjacent to our family shelter location
okay.
on Main Street.
Wonderful. So how many will be housed in that building?
16 units going up now.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And that's a great
Right.
location.
It's perfect.
Yes.
It's across the street from Edmonds. It's near the library. It's downtown on
Exactly,
the bus
right.
line. Everything.
Talk about
everything's
pedestrian
right there.
friendly.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's a great example of both historic preservation because the shelter is in an 1806 building.
Oh,
And it's infill construction, downtown where we need housing.
right. I
Close to
love it.
services. All of the units are dedicated to families that have experienced homelessness.
Fabulous.
We are going to see a lot of folks move from the shelter into the housing. We'll have a couple folks from the motels who are living in motels
And
now,
that's all
moving
waiting
in.
list based
Yep.
sort of. I can't even imagine like how many people are on a waiting list.
Too many.
Oh,
Too
absolutely.
Many. Right. We have probably 16 or 17 on our wait list for family shelter right now.
Right. It's a lot of
And we've
people.
been prioritizing families that are in the motel system since June. So
Right.
about 30% of our referrals are folks who come right from the motels
Right.
into a more supportive environment.
So that's what I was going to say. At the motels, there really are not services
Not
provided.
so much.
Not
Really
all-
not at all. And that's what our motel team does, is
Right.
to go out and knock on the doors and try to meet people and
Exactly.
get them connected. Right.
Right. So that's fabulous in itself. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a lot of moving parts, and I'm just wondering from a financial point of view, where do the donations come from? Fundraisers. I know you have a big fundraiser coming up, and you do very well with your fundraisers. But let's talk about that aspect of COTS.
Sure.
Okay.
So about half of our budget is the community-based and foundation donations, and that's I can't emphasize how important that is.
I can imagine.
That allows us to fund a children's mental health advocate position. There isn't grant funding for that. That helps support our leadership team because federal and state grants pay salaries for shelter staff, but never for supervision. There's always very little in those grants for the fringe, the things you need to support employees and keep them retained and keep
Exactly.
them
Right.
education, IT, all of that we have to
Absolutely,
supply that,
right, because it's retention that you need, and certainly with what you're doing, that retention and those relationships are key.
So we have a few. One of our big ones is coming up, the COTS Walk.
Right. So
So-
how many people typically attend the walk?
It's upwards to 2,000.
Oh, fabulous!
is
I know it has.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Which is
it's
fantastic.
always one of those walks where it's I think the biggest walk in the city.
I think it may be.
And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
organizations, nonprofits certainly do a lot of walks, and I've never seen as big of a crowd as I have at COTS. So
And
that's
the
wonderful.
idea behind that is really to sort of walk in somebody else's shoes, right?
Right.
And go
Some
past our
messaging
locations,
around, yes.
right? To see where the shelter is, where the family shelter
And
is.
how long is the walk?
The walk is about 3.1 miles. If you
3.1
If you
miles?
do the long version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
And we have a shorter version for the kiddos.
Oh,
right?
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so
And so what's the date on that,
the
Jonathan?
date is Sunday, May 5th.
Sunday, May 5th.
Yes.
And then what time?
That starts at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you meet down at the waterfront?
We're at Battery. We starts
Battery-
and ends at Battery Park.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And there's Ben and Jerry's there. Too.
Oh.
Thank you, Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, oh, good. Definite shout out to Ben and Jerry's, yes.
Yeah, and a lot of sponsorship goes into that. So the money that our walkers raise goes directly to our programming. It doesn't go to the
Beautiful.
porta potties and the tents and the
Right.
police
So you
force
cover
and
the event,
yes.
and then this is money that you
Yes.
can actually put
Yes.
to
Yes.
services.
So we have a lot of generous sponsors who help us with the with the logistics of that event.
Beautiful.
Which is great.
And what's the history on that? How many years ago did the first walk take
my
place?
gosh.
I know it goes way back.
It goes way back. We're well over 35.
Yes.
That's
beautiful.
Yeah.
You think of all the walks that have come and gone. That's a lot of history.
That's a lot. And a lot of folks who have been at all of them, which is amazing.
Whoa, that certainly is remarkable. Definitely.
Yeah.
So that's a big fundraiser for
That's a
you.
big
And
fundraiser
then
for us.
what are other events or ways that, people can, obviously they can go to the website and donate, but are
Absolutely.
there any other, programs that they can support in some other way, like even in trading different services or things like that?
Absolutely. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities, everything from reading with kids in the shelter. Lunch at the day station is a big one because
Sure.
we serve that warm noontime meal
every day.
Every day. Up to 80 people some days, most days 50.
So that's a crowd, yeah.
It's a crowd.
That's not
It's
your
a crowd.
backyard barbecue.
Right.
Right.
But we have a lot of folks who do that as a team building exercise, maybe with colleagues. So
yes,
some
yes,
business groups come in. We have some faith groups that come in.
Oh,
We have
beautiful.
some individuals. Love and Blessings is a group that comes in. And they twice a month and does the meal and a dynamite Christmas dinner. So there are some really generous folks in the community that do that, and it's an ongoing need for us to feed folks.
Sure.
So that's a biggie. We also have our phone-a-thon. That's one of our big fundraisers. And it's funny, this day and age, you think it might not work, but we've kind of adapted it and made it virtual
So,
and
what
use
has
cell
changed?
phones.
How are you doing that? So, walk me through, and then when
sure.
is that? And do you need volunteers for that?
Always need volunteers
Okay.
for phone-a-thon. That's
Okay.
just after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yep. We have we need hundreds of people to make the calls.
Right.
Right. And the fun thing is we're calling folks who have donated to COTS.
Exactly.
So it's not
they're
scary.
Exactly.
You're
They're
not
very
cold
familiar.
calling.
Right. They're very familiar with the mission and obviously the good
Tons-
that comes from
Even
this.
in this day and age where people screen their calls and check their cell phone, people pick up the phone. And they want to know about COTS and they want to know what's going on. And they want to thank the people who are volunteering. It's
Love it. Yeah, that's a community in itself,
It's
right?
a fantastic event that you'd think maybe in this day and age doesn't work, but
It still does.
It still does, and we connect to a lot of supporters.
So
that way.
how much would you generate from a phone-a-thon?
The phone-a-thon raises well over $250,000.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. In one phone-a-thon?
yeah. One phone-a-thon.
That
Yeah,
is
yeah,
very
which is amazing.
impressive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
There's some
again,
deep
it's
roots there.
It's
Yes.
it's well established.
Exactly.
It's people who care about their community, who appreciate the work that COTS has done over the years. Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah, which is wonderful. We have another great event that's good for volunteering. It's called we call it now the Back to School Bonanza.
Okay.
So what we used to do a back to school drive.
Right, I remember that.
Collect the backpacks and the school supplies. We'd have volunteers stuff the backpacks, and
Yes.
then we'd give them to the kids in shelter and kids at Lund and kids at King Street. But we've turned that around and made it a fun event. So the kids get to come. This year we had a bouncy house.
Oh,
we
my
had face
goodness.
painting.
That's brilliant.
We had
Yes.
haircuts for the kids. And they could go around, and all of the booths were staffed by volunteers. They could pick out their own backpack. Because,
Oh, exactly. Right.
what if you get the
Yeah, I
what if
didn't
you get
want-
the
I want
yellow
that
one? I want the
right.
yellow
Yes.
one. Right. So the kids get to pick out their school supplies, their notebooks. Cliff,
Just like they should.
Cliff was there to give out books. The
Oh, I
library was
love
there
it.
to give out books and read stories. We had
What a
music.
way to get excited about school, too.
Exactly. And
Yes.
it's open to the public. It's not just people who are in the shelter. And everything we collect, it's not a fundraiser. Everything goes back into the community. So it's just such a great way to meet
Absolutely.
families, meet kids. It's beautiful.
Oh, it sure is.
Yeah.
So then, let's see, I'm going to just check my notes here real quickly and see if we have, well, I guess with COVID and the pandemic, what has changed from your perspective, and how has, what are some of the pros now, for instance, instead of always, there's a lot of mental illness and a lot of sadness that came as a result of the pandemic. But can you point to anything good that you think your organization has been able to take away from that very uncertain time?
Yeah. There's a number of things. One, just from a operations and workplace standpoint,
Right.
we're doing a lot more hybrid work with our staff.
Interesting, and that's probably better as far as morale and
I
just
think so.
yes,
Yeah.
you-
So
you never thought it could work.
Right.
And it does.
Right.
And it's actually better. It's an improvement. So that's a good thing to bring up.
So that's a really
in a positive.
interesting,
Yes.
a really interesting positive. We're all more well connected with Teams and Zoom.
Yes.
So getting connected with community partners, with our friends at the stage.
Streamlines that process.
You know, we don't have to all meet in Montpelier
exactly on a day
or Randolph.
that,
You know, so you can. Yeah, we can have
more flexibility.
A lot more flexibility.
Yes.
So I'm finding some connections with other nonprofit leaders, other
Wonderful.
shelter providers that we can get together and work on. We're really proud that we were able to keep people safe during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Our shelter is a bunk room. There's a bunk room for folks who identify as male and a bunk room for folks who identify as female. And a pandemic comes along and like, that's not the greatest.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's where the motel program came in and
at
was
that
really
point.
helpful.
Yes.
We were able to reduce the number of folks in the shelter to increase personal space. So that was good. So long term, we're looking at sort of recreating our shelter for individuals into a less congregate model.
Yes.
That's a hefty construction project,
Exactly,
but it's on our
the radar
it's
now.
on the radar now.
Right.
As a way to
And
to
how
mitigate
far
that
out
in the
does your
future.
strategic plan go?
Well, we have what we call a framework.
Okay, and then
We try to refresh it every 5 years or so.
5 years. Wonderful.
Yeah, if we can.
Big or new on the horizon for 24, 25?
We're looking at
construction.
one of our,
you have a lot of development going, which is exciting.
We've got the building about to launch, and we're just starting planning for one of our buildings that is what we call an SRO model, a single room occupancy.
Oh, okay.
So think boarding house.
Right.
COTS remodeled the building in 1991, I think, and it's time for a refresh. But it's all single rooms with shared bathrooms and kitchen. And we're looking to expand the model we've used in other development projects to create efficiencies in studios. It really it gives people, the privacy should a pandemic arise again.
Exactly.
But more importantly, it's about the sense of dignity and importance, right? So I have my own space.
Exactly.
I have my own bathroom.
So much pride in that.
I have my own kitchen. I can close my door and. So we're looking at that right now, and that's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what would a typical building? I'm sure it varies quite a bit, but would it be in that 16 to 20 people range, or how big are some of the buildings that you look at for housing?
Yeah. Well, this particular building is 24 units.
Oh, fantastic!
So it's and it'll be, again, we're reusing the space and planning an addition to create those individual apartments as opposed to just a room.
And so is there any federal funding? Like you said, I mean, there's not grants for a lot of things, but certain things you can, like construction style and development, are you able to tap into that
Absolutely.
piece of the pie there?
Absolutely.
That's awesome, as it should be.
Yeah, we do a fair amount of investment ourselves. So our Main Street buildings, about a third of the budget is COTS. And about a third is federal money that came through the Vermont Housing Conservation Board.
Wonderful.
And the other piece is what they call the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program for that. So it's complex, but we have some good partners, especially
and a lot of pieces, thankfully, and that's what you need.
Absolutely. So we're working with Evernorth on this project, and they help manage the tax credit.
Right,
Compliance, bundling the funding, the back end stuff.
A lot of things that are available, again, that some people are not aware of, and then it just restricts what we can do in Burlington. And here, this opens up great opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we are done with our show.
Right.
I can't believe it. This is such a pleasure, Jonathan.
Well,
to
thank
meet
you so
with
much. I was so happy to be here.
I am so thankful for your time and for all the work that you and your team do.
Well, we got kudos to the team.
I know. Thank you so very much.
You are welcome.
Okay.